One of my kids likes to play a game with me called the Would You Rather game. I don't know if you've ever played Would You Rather. I have many kind of happy hours of that. And if you don't know what it is, it's basically where you imagine two contrasting hypothetical situations. Okay, then you have to say which one you would prefer. So, for example, would you rather not brush your teeth for a whole month or wear wet socks for a whole month, for example? That's an important question. Or would you rather be able to become invisible when you wanted to, or would you rather be able to fly if you wanted to? So, important questions which you need to consider. But perhaps I can offer you a slightly more profound one. We do profound ones as well, but how about this? So would you rather have everything you could possibly want in material terms, anything you could possibly want, but have no or virtually no relationships with family or friends or community, so you basically live completely on your own, but with everything you wanted? Or would you rather have just about enough to get by in material terms, but have a really great range of friendships and relationships with family and community, and so on? And although the first one is tempting, I'm an introvert, so I'll be quite happy sometimes just kind of like, just give me the stuff, I'll live on my own, I'll be all right. But although it's tempting, I think probably most of us agree that the second one would be the best one, because we know deep down that it's those kind of connections with other people, with friends and family and community, that is probably the most important thing, that kind of sharing of life that happens, that energy and fruitfulness that comes through connections with others. Not that we're always very good at it, sometimes we mess it up, sometimes it goes wrong, but deep down we know that's one of the most, if not the most important thing. We know we need that connection, that community, and so on, when we benefit from it. So as you might know, we've been considering the I am sayings of Jesus over the past few weeks, All Saints, and we've covered 5 or 6, I think we missed out on the 6th one, but we've covered 5 so far, and they've all been about, to summarize, like who Jesus is and what it means to follow him and the incredible blessings that he gives to us, his followers. So we have had, just to summarize, we've had Jesus saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. We've had Jesus saying, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. Whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. We've had Jesus talking about the good shepherd who calls his sheep by name and lays down his life for the sheep. And Jesus talking about being the resurrection and the life, and the one who believes in me will live even though they die. So we have all these amazing things and blessings that Jesus gives to us as followers. We took light, provision, sustenance, nothing less than resurrection life in the here and now and in the future as well. But amazing as all those things are, and all those things that he gives us that only he can give us, I want to say that there is actually still more. There's still more that he wants to give us. And by the way, this is not a kind of would you rather either or. This is a both and, both those things and more. And here's where we get to the 7th and final I am saying of Jesus. And we're going to be in John chapter 15, which is on page 1083 of your church Bibles. But just to explain the context, so we're in John, towards the end of John, and we're coming, we've had the Last Supper. So this is the night where Jesus is betrayed, and the night before he is going to die. And he's preparing his disciples for what is going to happen next. He's preparing them for his death, his arrest, and his betrayal and death. And then his resurrection and returning to the Father after that. So given that that's about to happen, you might have thought he would say something like this. Okay, he didn't say this, but you might have thought he would say something like this. Friends, it's been good to be with you over the past few years, and it's been great teaching you how to follow me, but from now on, things are going to change. Things are going to happen, and I'm not going to be here with you anymore. You're going to have to learn to be more independent and get along by yourself, because I'm going to be with my Father in heaven after all that's going to happen in the next few days. So you might think he would say that would make sense in kind of common sense terms to say that to his disciples. But as you know, he doesn't say that. In fact, he says pretty much the opposite. So I'm going to read from John chapter 15, verse 5, page 1083. What he says is this. He says, "I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you remain in me, and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." So in other words, you could say that he is taking his relationship with his disciples to a new kind of level of closeness and intimacy. I mean, the metaphor of the sheep and the shepherd, which we've had before, that's a pretty close relationship. But he's actually now talking about a vine and the branches. So it's not just about following him or kind of being obedient to him and following him, but it's actually about a kind of a total joining of life together in a kind of union. So as in East London, we don't often have, I don't often see many vines in East London. I don't know if you do, but I've got a few pictures just so this might help. So there's a bit of a vine. You can see the vine, which is kind of the thick bit in the middle, and then the branches across the top, and we've got a couple more. There's another one, there's a vine and its branches, and one more. Here we have a helpful diagram. You can see it's a bit like a biology lesson. We have a vine and its branch. So what that shows, obviously, is that this kind of metaphor is about a kind of total joining together of life between Jesus and his disciples, with the life flowing from the vine into the branches. It's about total dependence of one upon the other. The branch depends on the vine completely for life. And it's about a total kind of sharing and giving of everything between the two. Neither exist for themselves, but they exist for one another. And so that's the kind of the closeness between Jesus and his disciples that he is talking about. And if you had to sum that up in one word, I would say connection, isn't it? It's connection, this kind of total close connection between the vine and the branches, or union. And we have that simply by remaining in him, not just being with him or close to him, but actually being in him. So thank you. We can lose the diagram. Thank you for that. Thanks, guys. So what does this look like in practice? So what does this mean in practice? Well, firstly, some slightly challenging news, perhaps. So I'm going to read from the start of John chapter 15. This is John chapter 15, verse 1 and 2, and it says this. Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that we'll be even more fruitful." Okay, so apparently within the plant kingdom, if you had to pick any plant that is the most similar to humans, it would probably be a vine, okay? And the reason for that is because the vines obviously have the potential to produce the most incredible fruit and be such a blessing, but they also require the most work. Vines are very high maintenance, okay? They're dependent entirely on cultivation. And I was watching a YouTube clip of a real-life vine dresser talking about John chapter 15. And he was saying that he has to work really, really hard all year round to get a good harvest at the right time. And I'm no gardener, but I did a bit of research, and I found the reason why you have to prune a vine or other plants is because left to themselves, they will kind of become tangled and kind of grow in on themselves and start wasting their energy. They'll have additional foliage which will kind of block out the light, which needs to be cut away so the emerging fruit can get the light. And just left to themselves, a vine, it won't become what it could be. It'll produce lots of kind of little fruit. But if you want the best fruit from a vine, you have to prune it and cut it back so that it can become what it should be and reach its full potential. And so too for us, that's what Jesus is saying, that if we are the branches, we might also need to be cut back or pruned back, even if we're bearing fruit, especially if we're already bearing fruit. We might need to be cut back so we can be directed back towards the light, and so we can bear the best fruit and become what we're really meant to be. And sometimes that might mean that we feel the vine dresser's knife, if you like, metaphorically speaking, the Father doing his work in us, kind of cutting out the dead wood, cutting back the growth so that new fruit can come through. And that can sometimes be painful, it can sometimes hurt and be difficult. And what that might mean is, I want to be a bit careful about what I say here, but I have been sometimes, a long time ago, I was in a context where people would say things like, whatever happens to you in your life is God's will for you, even if it's some kind of terrible tragedy, because they had a certain view of God's sovereignty that meant that everything that happened to you was God's will. And even really bad things were kind of thought for your good and for his glory. Now, I personally largely disagree with that view. I don't think that's right. I don't think that fits with the way Jesus talks about the kingdom of God, and Jesus teaches us to pray and to work so that the kingdom will come, and God's will in fact be done on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus didn't say that I came to kill and steal and destroy. He said that it's the thief who kills and steals and destroys, but I came to give life in all its fullness. So that's what I think. I'm happy to discuss that with anybody. However, I do believe that sometimes we might be led under the hand of God through difficult or challenging circumstances, which leads to us feeling that we're being kind of cut back or pruned, if that makes sense, so that new life can come through. But the process of that might be painful or feel painful at the time. I think I have I've got my own experience in that kind of area. I think a number of years ago I was doing a different kind of job, and it seemed to be going quite well. I was working on a project which was doing quite well, seemed to be getting some attention and funding. And I remember being invited to this kind of awards thing run by a newspaper by somebody who was funding the project. And I remember him saying to me, next year, we're hoping that it'll be you up there receiving an award. So I remember thinking, wow, this is amazing. I've really made it. This is going well. As that happened, a year later, I was not receiving an award because the funding for the project had very quickly run out, and it had all come to an end, and I'd lost my job, so I didn't have a job. So I was doing things that I hadn't had to do before. Like I had to go to the job centre and sign on and experience all that kind of thing, which was actually fine. But I remember in the job centre running into this guy that I used to work with. I used to kind of mentor him and kind of encourage him. But I ran into him and in the job centre, and I just realised, actually, kind of we're on the same side of the table now. And then other things happened. I decided to become a stay-at-home dad, which was good in some ways, and obviously kids are a blessing, but I found spending all my time with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old was quite a kind of a pruning, shall I say, experience. But slowly, over a few years, I kind of wish it had happened a bit more quickly. But over the years, there was a kind of a new direction that emerged, a new fruit was able to come through. And we kind of changed direction, which has led to more this kind of thing that I'm doing now. And that's just me, but what I mean to say is that wouldn't have happened without kind of the painful cutting back of the kind of the vine dresser's knife, so to speak, which was difficult and it was a bit painful. But over time, I can see the hand of God in that. I can see that he enables new things to happen, new directions, new fruit to come through. And that's just me. I'm not only talking about big events. There might be daily things that you experience, a kind of sense of, I don't know, maybe God's presence departs for a season where you have to kind of search after him again or something like that. Maybe a ministry is coming to an end and so on. But sometimes, if that is happening to you, and I think it does happen to all of us in different ways, maybe we just have to remain in the vine and trust the vine dresser, the gardener, our Father in heaven, and trust and hope for what it says in verse 5, that there will be fruit. Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So that is what we believe, and that's what we hope for, isn't it? That if we remain in the vine, we will bear fruit. And perhaps that means we shouldn't get too caught up on sort of trying to produce the fruit or even design the fruit as we would like it. Maybe that's not our concern. Maybe our main concern should just be remaining connected to the vine. And then the fruit will come. It might look like what we think it will, or it might look something different. But we need to be connected into the vine. So can I ask, how is your connection to Jesus, the vine? How is it? Is it strong and vital and life-giving? All those things it should be. Or is there a sense in which maybe over time there's something's been lost somehow? I think this can happen to lots of us. Is there a way that we feel like the connection's not quite what it was, or not quite what we'd like it to be? And that can happen for lots of different reasons. Like any kind of long-term relationship is obviously not quite the same as it was at the start. But maybe we got a bit too busy. Maybe we took on some responsibility. Maybe there was some disappointment. All sorts of things can happen over time. But if that is you in some way, and I'm sure all of us in at times, don't worry, there is always grace and hope. The connection is still there. It can be strengthened and so on. I thought the Lord saying as I was praying about that the Lord, he loves to restore his vine. What gardener would not love to restore his vine and make it healthy and strong again if it needs that? And just day by day, obviously, I think we have to intentionally keep connecting with Jesus. It's not about us working hard. It's not about legalism or working hard, obviously not. But it is maybe about putting ourselves in a place as much as we can where we can connect with Jesus, the vine, and then let him do the rest. We need to kind of yield his influence and always be inviting him in. So just as a few examples, perhaps first thing in the morning, before you kind of start thinking about anything else, could you say a prayer of thanks, just ask the Lord into your life afresh? Maybe last thing at night as well. Maybe when you are, I don't know, unstacking the dishwasher, could you listen to some worship music? Could you open up your Bible app before you open up any other apps or anything else on your phone? So just take those opportunities to connect, just small ways, but just keep connecting to Jesus as much as you can. And if you do that little bit, he will do everything else. He will meet you and, he will meet you and restore you and strengthen everything. The life will come from him into you. Because ultimately, as we've found with these I am sayings of Jesus, they do ultimately kind of force a choice upon us. In a sense, there are implications. And this is why all this stuff really matters. So just continuing from verse 6 to 8 in chapter 15 of John, it says this. It says, "If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. But if you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciples." And so that really is the choice before us, as Jesus puts it. If we don't remain in Jesus, we might end up as little more than sort of wood for the fire. But if we remain in him and his words remain in us, then listen to this, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. That's what Jesus says. And I think what he means by that is as we kind of remain in Jesus, as we stay connected to him, then our own desires, our own prayers will come into conformity with his will, so that we are praying along the lines that he wants for his kingdom and for his glory. And then when we do that, we will bring about the most incredible fruit. And that's, I think, what the fruit is. The fruit is the answer to prayers that are prayed in the presence of Jesus, connected to him. And that's the way Jesus has chosen it to be, that we, just if you remember that diagram, we are the ones who bear fruit for the world. In that sense, he's chosen to be dependent on us, to bear fruit for the world so that people can see and taste the goodness of God. It's through us that people will see the character of God, the presence of God, the works of God, all that. Jesus has chosen to do that through us. And so as we remain connected to him and as we pray his prayers, we will see the kingdom of God come. And all that kind of fruitfulness will come from our connection to him. So that is what I want more than anything, and I'm sure you are the same. That's what we want, isn't it? See the kingdom come and his will be done through abiding in him, through our prayers being answered. And all of that just comes from staying in Jesus and being connected to him. It's as simple as that, really, isn't it? So yeah, may you be strengthened, may you be blessed, and let's keep praying these prayers. So, shall we pray together? Would you like to stand as we do? And yeah, I'll invite the worship team to come back as well. Yeah, so perhaps you might just want to just reach out your hands and just kind of connect with Jesus afresh. And there's a few people it'd be really good to pray for. Maybe you're in that place where you know you are being pruned and cut back, and it's not comfortable. It's a bit painful, in fact. But may you just know, may you trust that the fruit is coming, and entrust yourself to the Father, the vine dresser, believing that his purposes for you are good, even though it's difficult at the moment. Trust in the fruit that will come. And maybe for those of you, you know or you feel that your connection with Jesus isn't quite what it was or isn't quite as you'd like it to be. Just entrust yourself to him, knowing that he loves to restore his vine. He loves to get people connected back in. We just need to be putting ourselves in a place where we can receive from him. And maybe there's a few of you, you know you've been praying kingdom prayers, you know you've been just kind of remaining in Jesus, and you know that your prayers are, maybe there's a bit of you in there, but you know it's his prayers to his kingdom desires in your hearts, and you long to see that fruit. Maybe you've seen it coming, but there's more to come, and you're longing for that. Just trust in what he says. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. And that's to the Father's glory, that we bear much fruit.